Everybody, it's Brian. Thank you for coming back to enjoy another episode of Beyond the Rider. Today, we're going to be talking to BoDean52. BoDean's a writer and a content creator from the great state of Michigan. He's a stand-up guy with some great content and is involved in some really great things in the community. So without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, Mr. BoDean52, welcome, sir. How are you?
Hey, brother. Great to see you. Great to be on. I appreciate the invite.
Great to have you taken the time out. I appreciate it, sir. So for those of you that don't know you, which shame on them, I'll say, could you tell us a little bit about your channel?
Sure. My channel goes by the name of BoDean52. My name happens to be Bob. Go figure, right? So I have been putting out content, mostly a motovlogger, for about a year and a half, maybe a year and 9 months, something like that. Do stuff with my wife, gear reviews. I can talk forever, so I get on the motorcycle and see a tree that looks orange, and all of a sudden I'm trying to make a vlog of it, right? So I just really love doing it, for sure. So
that's awesome.
But pretty easygoing channel. I got my wife on as much as I possibly can, and people seem to like her better than me. She's prettier than I am, so you know how that goes. So
well, you can run off the revenue then. You can get her to do all the work. That's what you got to do. You have an income stream now.
There you go.
That's awesome. So what got you on two wheels?
It's interesting. When I never grew up around bikes. I really didn't. My family didn't ride bikes. And I was actually in college. I don't know, I was probably a junior in college and lived off campus with a couple of buddies, and one of the guys had a bike, right? And I said, hey, let me ride that around.
That's awesome.
And started taking it into class and into town every now and then. And I don't even remember what the heck it was. I do remember, it's funny doing these, you think about things that you forget, right? I remember the first time I rode it, we lived in this little country type community, and probably 5 miles off of campus. I remember taking it around the block the first time. I figured that probably makes sense. And I didn't get the whole thing about your eyes, the bike follows your eyes. And I ended up almost into a cornfield with the bike, because I really didn't know what the heck I was doing. So, and that's what it really started. And then when I left school, I really didn't start riding until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. My wife was no, you're not going to ride. It's dangerous, right? Don't think you should do that. And so it's funny. One Sunday morning we were out and said, let's go have breakfast. So I went out and had breakfast, and I said, hey, let's stop by the motorcycle store, right? And I wanted to try to get her okay with it. So kind of showed her a couple motorcycles. I was just looking around and had her sit on a couple bikes, and she's like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I said, I'm thinking about buying one. I'll get a used one to try for a while. I haven't rode since college, and that was maybe, 10, 15 times, right? And she kind of was like, hey, this isn't so bad. And I said, I'll tell you what, if I get a used one, I'll take a training class. So, I don't hurt myself, right? And she started to feel better about that, right? And sure enough, she went from no way, don't ride a bike, to now she's like, when can we go on the bike?
That's
so awesome. Amazing how that happens.
It's amazing too, and that's what I love about your channel. To have your spouse involved, it's always so much better. It makes the adventure so much better because you're not taking time away. You're building those memories together, which I think is fantastic.
I think it's brought us together closer, to be honest with you, to ride together and have comms to talk together. I think it's been much better for our relationship, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's nice too, because you get away from the social media, you get away from everything. It's just the two of you and you're kind of right. Now, did you start with your current bike, or what bike did you start with?
No, I actually, it's funny. Once I decided to do that, I was visiting my sister, and a guy had a Suzuki C50T on the street and his driveway.
Oh, the touring one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went down and I was talking to my sister, and I said, hey, I'm going to go down and look at that motorcycle. So the guy came out. I looked at his wife was there. He wasn't there. So I looked at it. I'm like, hey, I might come back to ride it. And so I came back the next day, and it's still the same. Hey guy, you ride around the block. If you wreck it, it's yours type deal, right? So, so I took it around the block.
No pressure.
Again, still wasn't really good because I remember going in a cul-de-sac and I couldn't get the eye thing going. And sure enough, I almost rode up on a driveway and down a sidewalk to get back on the road. It's funny now thinking about it. I forgot about that, but I went back and bought that bike, and I had it about 3 months, maybe 2 months. I think I paid $3,500 for it or something like that. And I traded in for $2,500. So it cost me like $1,000 for 3 months. But as soon as I started riding it again, I loved it. I'm like, I'm just going to go buy a bike I want.
That's awesome. So, yeah. Now, did you take the class first? Because I rode originally before I took my class for, I don't know, about 1,500 miles. And I had the same experience. I pulled out into the main street the first time I rode.
Yeah.
Cars coming, which in my mind now, it probably was 10 miles away, but then it felt like it was right there. And I accelerated and went off the road and, had that whole crazy experience.
You know what? I actually, now that I think back about it, I think no, you know what? I didn't. I did not. I bought that bike and I didn't have the class because I remember a buddy helping me put the bike on his trailer and taking it back to my house. It's awesome. Funny when I took the Harley class, and again, this is 5 or 6 years ago. I was at the time going, I'm going to buy a bike. I'm going to buy a Harley. Right. And then I remember taking the instructor, and she jokes about it now because I talked to her and she was at a different dealership and we kind of joke around. I asked her the question. I'm like, hey, how am I going to get this thing home after the 4-day training class? She's like, you're going to ride it home. I'm like, okay. Right. So it's amazing how things change, right?
It was, for me, it was interesting because I'm assuming it's the same way everywhere. I had a permit when I took the class, obviously. I couldn't ride at night, but my class, by the time they did the paperwork, I had a license, but never ridden at night and had to ride home. I was like, well, this is going to be fun.
You know what? I don't think we had that at all. I think I took the class. And then because you took the class, you went down to the DMV or Secretary of State, whatever it was. And then you just got your license. So, I actually traded that bike in and I bought a 2016 Street Glide Special. So that was my first real Harley. And I got it in denim black, which I thought looked cool, and it does. Denim paint is the biggest pain in the butt.
Yep.
And my wife decided to start getting on a bike, and, a Street Glide Special is probably not the best bike for somebody to be on the back of if you don't have a tour pack on it.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you talked about the channel when I first started. As you know, Harley Day Rider HDR is one of my best friends on the planet. Right. And he had a great channel. I ended up following him. I don't know how it happened. I used to watch a guy by the name of Sean Smoke, and then Harley Day Rider. I mean, that was it. And they lived probably 40 miles away, and they decided that they were going to come. They said, hey, let's go for a ride. I think I probably hounded the guy for a while, right? He's like, yeah, let's meet up for a ride. So we ended up meeting up, and I got to share this story with you. The day we met, it was probably 90, right? 90 degrees. And we're early. They show up, and at the time, I'm wearing a light jacket, and I'm thinking I'm being safe by wearing the windbreaker Harley things that really doesn't do anything for you. And they pulled in. We introduced ourselves, got our comms going, and before we were out of this gas station where we met, HDR says to me, he goes, "Dude, aren't you sweating to death in that jacket?" Because he had a short sleeve shirt on and fingerless gloves and stuff. And his wife's like, "You just met him and you're already busting his chops?" And I'm like, "You and I are going to be friends. I can tell this real quick," because we were busting each other's chops from 5 minutes. And I'll tell you what, after we rode a couple of times, again, on the Street Glide Special, we were out riding once, and we decided to stop at this little gas station convenience store to get something to drink. And HDR's wife and myself wanted to go in and get something. And my wife, she's like, "I'm good." So HDR and my wife are outside, and his wife and I go in, I don't know, we're picking up some waters or something. And we walk back out, and my wife looks at me and she goes, "We got to get another bike." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, this is fun. We're all becoming friends. I think I want to do some of the touring stuff. I think we need a bigger bike, kind of like, the HDRs had." So I joke that HDR owes me $30,000 all the time because who am I to argue with my wife? So I took that in and I bought a 2018 Ultra Limited. So that's how I ended up.
That is exactly how we wound up with our bike. We had a Intruder 1500, which is basically like the Suzuki you started with, but the bigger version of it.
Yeah.
And we went out and rode. By the time we came back, I mean, we've had it a while. My wife about fell off the back of the bike. She's like, "I don't think I can do this anymore." And I was like, "Okay, well, this is, we kind of built this, not lifestyle, but at the time we've ride a couple of years together." And so the next day I was like, I want to go look at Ultras, because I really wanted a road glide like HDR has, but I couldn't find one in my price range. My wife says to me, "You know what? I'm going to go with you because if you test ride one, I'm already in pain. So it's either going to work or it's not." Well, long story short, we walked out with a bike and
with the Ultra, right?
Yeah, with the Ultra. And she, we're in the, I can remember this like it was yesterday. We're in the dealership and she's arguing with me. She's not literally arguing with me, but she's trying to convince me. And I remember this guy coming up to me, biker guy with his wife. And he's like, "Look, I don't mean to interrupt. Just buy the stupid bike. She's telling you to buy it." I was like, "Oh, okay."
What year is yours? I forgot.
So I have a 2014. So I have the twin cam, the 103.
Okay, gotcha.
And I couldn't. I was completely opposed to it. I never thought I'd buy a Harley. It just wasn't my thing. My buddy had one. It just wasn't my thing. Yeah. And then I test rode one, and I was like, "Oh, okay, now I get it."
You know what's interesting? When I bought that bike. And I was kind of looking around, HDR rides a road glide, and a lot of guys like road glides. And I was really trying to decide between both of them. There's a lot of people are like, "Hey, ride the road glide. And when I rode the Ultra, I just kind of fell in love with it. Even though for a big guy, I'm 6'2", 6'3". So at the beginning, it felt a little cramped till I modified the bike a bunch. I never rode the road glide. I'm always careful talking about this on my channel, not to offend too many people, but that's kind of how it goes, right? I just don't like the look of the fairing in the front of the road glide. From sitting on the seat, I just don't like the look, and that's just me personally. Yeah. I know it's better touring. I know it cuts through the wind better than mine. I just didn't like the look.
But I think it's all relative. I mean, that was the first touring Harley I ever rode, was a road glide. I took one out at Atlantic City Harley, and I told the guy straight up, I'm like, "I'm kind of scared of this. Like, going from my Suzuki to this. I mean, it's like triple this. It feels like it's triple the size. It may not be, but in my mind."
Sure.
And he's like, "Oh, no, take it out. You can go by yourself." So I took it out, and I couldn't believe just how well that bike handles. Yeah. And I don't, mine's the same way. And especially now, I totally get the Harley thing because, like you, I've changed my bars, I've changed my seat. So now the bike fits me. If somebody else sat on it, they'd be like, "I hate this." That's fine because it's not built for you. It's literally set up for me.
Think you'll ever get rid of it?
Yeah, I really want a road glide. I'm about 3 years out from no child support, and that may or may not be my gift to myself. But
there you go.
But that's the thing too, in having it, and we've built these memories. We went on that 13-day trip. The bike fits me, so every time I sit on a road glide, I love it. But then I start doing the math in my head of how we got to where we got now, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm that committed. It seems fun in theory. I don't know.
You know what? If I ever got rid of that bike, and I don't know that I would, but you know how that goes. I never thought I'd get rid of my street glide either. I would definitely ride a road glide just to see how it handles itself. But right now I've done so much to my bike and I like it. And I have a run around town bike, so it makes it easy. I don't know if I'd go there or not, but who knows, right?
That's the thing, right? Because then you start doing the math of, well, I could buy the bike and have bike payments, or I could spend that money and go on trips. And the trips are what make it. It's
No doubt.
either you have the bike in the garage and it looks cool, or you have the bike out on the road, and you're not paying a payment. So, but that actually kind of rolls into this. So you met HDR, you became friends with HDR. Now, was he your inspiration to start your channel?
You know what? He really was. I started playing a little bit with the channel probably a couple of years before then. I actually used to have a quad, and,
cool.
and myself and a bunch of buddies used to go to the mountains and ride our quads every year for like a week. There were probably 12 of us. We did it year after year after year after year. And so I played a little bit with putting a camera on that, because some of the mountain riding we did, if my wife ever saw it, she'd be like, don't ever do that again. It's not good for you. Right. So it
always looks worse on video. That's the giveaway.
Yeah. It actually looks better on video than, there are a couple of times you're like, if I fall off this trail, I'm just hoping that the tree is going to stop me, and then I'm going to, and a couple of guys die every year out there. So it's probably not the smartest thing, especially as I get older. But so that was my first experience. But I will tell you, it was really HDR. It's funny. And I have that first video of that ride together. And I remember joking that he was my 9th subscriber, and that the first 8 were my family.
Wow. Right? And look where you are now. That's cool.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. And then, ultimately we became close friends. So
that's awesome.
Amazing what biking does, right, for us. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and we have a cool common goal and a fun hobby, and it's amazing what it does.
It's amazing that if you ride, regardless of your, for lack of a better word, social status or what you're into, that's the commonality. Like, I've met lawyers that ride. That's all they want to talk about. I've met 1%ers, and all they want to talk about is your bike, which doesn't happen to be a Harley. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. It's interesting what it really all boils down to, that if you ride, that's the commonality. And I think that's great. There's not much like that. Or I think it's interesting too with the Harley. If you have anything branded Harley, you can go anywhere and wind up with 9 more friends when you leave a restaurant. My wife's come back from the ladies' room and with these people, and they're like, "Oh, we ride too." And next thing you know, these people are at your table. You're like, "Okay." It's really cool.
It's funny saying that. I was doing an interview of a sales candidate for business. I don't know, a couple months ago. And, by the time they get to me, normally they've already interviewed and we think they're the right candidate. And I'm just trying to figure out, is this person a good citizen type thing? And so, I ask a bunch of personal questions, up to the point where I'll get myself in trouble. And one thing I was talking to this lady, and I said, "Hey, what do you like doing outside of work? What makes you tick?" Right. And she was like reluctant. She's like, "Well, I got a hobby, but some people don't think it's right." And I'm like, "Well, okay." And she's like, "I ride motorcycles." I'm like, "That's great. I got 2 Harleys." Right. So it was one of those things that kind of stuck me. I'm like, why is that? Why does it bother you to tell me that? And she's like, "Well, different people have to, it doesn't matter what you do, right? We're all brothers and sisters, especially when we ride," to me.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how that commonality bonds us. But it's also, like you said, some people are like, "Oh, you're not a biker." Like, we all get it. You didn't, you're not busting up bars in the weekends. Maybe you are, but
exactly,
most people aren't. Oh, that's funny. So, do you have a theme for your channel? Because your channel has this really positive formula. I watch your videos, and even from the very beginning, and I feel like it's like, "Oh, it's BoDean," as though I knew you my whole life. It has that very personable, and I think that's what your followership is so strong for that. I mean, did you start out with that? Is it something you just naturally developed?
I wish I was more brilliant and had this great plan and strategy, but it is really getting on the bike and just. I kind of joke all the time, and that it's my therapy, right? It's my way to talk to people, so I don't have to do that, outside of that. And that's something I want to talk to you about towards the end if we can. But
absolutely,
it's just my way of relaxing And, I've noticed a lot of folks get burnt out doing what you and I do, right? I just can't see myself doing that, because to me, I've made it to where it's hopefully more fun than it is a chore. It's more of a challenge in the winter to get content out. But, I would like to say I was smart and had some sort of strategy, but it's really get out. I think one thing, I'm pretty critical of myself. I think things I got to do better. I got to do some more gear reviews, which is nice.
They're fun, but man, they just
take time.
That's a time suck.
Yeah. I've done a couple things to the bike that I was actually, set up and videotaping, and it was so difficult and it was going to take so much time. I'm like, heck with the video. I'm just getting this done. Right. So yeah, I'm thinking as I want to do things a little bit better next year, and, some more quality and some more trips. And because I think that you get into a habit of, if you're going out on the bike and you're talking, right, and you have a subject that people are interested in, I think that's good. But I think if you do too many of those in a row, that causes a challenge. So to me, I really want to break it up with some gear reviews, some stuff on the bike, the life with my wife, and then some trips. And this past year has been tough for trips for all of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We won't talk about that. But positivity there.
I should come up with some sort of strategy for the channel. I'm a positive guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't.
And that's the best part, because YouTube's so negative anymore.
I really don't have. I'm a pretty easy guy to get along with, or I'm awful to get along with, right? So if you're a positive person, I'm going to gravitate towards you. And if you're a negative person, I'm going to get as far away from you as I can. Just too much energy. Got to prioritize what's important in your life. And I think that over the last year or so, things that have happened in my life has made it real easy to do that. Right.
Oh yeah. You've had a difficult year for sure.
It's been fun. We knocked it out though.
Yeah. I think the therapeutic value, I think it's very, somebody asked me one time, why do I think that motorcycles provide that therapeutic thing? And I was like, well, because you're pretty much concentrating on not dying. And now that's completely exaggerated, but I feel like it's your mind's so busy with something that almost becomes free, because your mind's almost so overloaded at times that it's relaxing. And I don't know why. I wish I could explain it better.
You know it if you ride, right?
Yeah. You know why a dog sticks his head out the window, for sure.
It's funny you say that, because I filmed the video that'll be out in a month or so, because I only have probably 4 or 5 videos left, because I do stack my videos because of the wintertime, right? So
I wish I could do that.
So I'll have the next 4 or 5 videos are ones that I did a couple weeks ago. Okay. And I did one on why I ride. I think I was going to title it "Why We Ride," and then I'm like, I can't talk for everybody else, right? And why I ride. And it's funny, when it was one of those things that wasn't planned. It was just, I was out, so I started talking about it. And when I first started, I'm like, all right, what am I going to talk about before I hit the go button? And then I just hit the go button, and I could have mentioned, I think I called it the top 5 things or something like that. Yeah. I could have mentioned 20. It was to me, and I know you know this because you're a fellow rider. There's something about, to me, senses of being outside. I don't look at everything when I'm in a car or my truck. I don't look at signs that say 20 mile an hour turn. I never even knew those. Honestly, I felt like I never even knew those signs existed until I got a motorcycle. I think it's just the way I look at the world and the road and everything is different when I'm on a bike.
I've been lucky enough to take a few people with me over the 10 years I've been riding that never were on a bike. And everyone says the same thing. Like, did you smell that? Did you feel how the air changed? I'm like, yeah, but sometimes you forget about it too. That was the best part about taking Katie and bringing her along for the ride, was to be able to experience that again. And it's that constant reminder of how lucky we are.
There's a couple country roads here, and I moved here recently from Pennsylvania that has great roads to Michigan. It's pretty flat, and I actually moved to probably the best part of the state that I could ride and still have some cool roads. And I always go by this dairy farm on one of my favorite paths, and it stinks to high heaven when you go by there. And for some reason, it's okay. I don't know why it is. It's kind of okay, right? I joke about it, but it's just perception and how you smell and look at things is so much different on a bike, at least for me.
No, and I think it is. And it's very hard to, I feel bad for people that have watched it but never experienced it, because it's really hard to explain why. I've had this discussion all the time. My parents are a perfect example. Well, you have a $30,000 motorcycle. I bought it used. It's obviously not what I paid for it, but
right.
A rational person doesn't, I shouldn't say rational, but a person goes, well, that's a car payment. Yeah, but I never looked forward to riding in my car. I mean, I like my car, but
exactly.
I've never stressed over, I never sat up all night going, I wonder what kind of seats I should get in my car. It's just a completely different.
You don't go out in the garage and hug it when it's cold. Like, oh, wait, no. I don't do that. Somebody told me they did that.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have done that, no.
or sit on it in the dark when it's snowing outside.
Or you look at your phone and realize you have more pictures of your bike than your kids. But I mean, not that if they're watching, that's not true, but.
That's right.
So you've mentioned traveling. Do you have a trip that you've done that was something that's probably been your most memorable?
You know what? A couple of years ago, we did what was called the West Virginia Motovloggers Meetup. And I think this is before you and I met. And it was
I've heard about that.
Yeah, it was really myself, HDR, and a guy, Bruce, by the name of, he goes by D Best 1A. I don't know if you follow him or not.
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
He's a New York City police officer. And the three of us were kind of friends. And we said, hey, let's go down into West Virginia and ride. Maybe we'll invite some people, right? Our channels were small. And we went from just the three of us to, we had 28 bikes, 38 people, 37 people. And it ended up being a big thing. We don't want to take credit for it, but there's a lot of those meetups. There's a meetup coming this year. And we did that. And I'll tell you what, I loved it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work. I would never lead one of those things again. We had guys that were responsible for, how are we going to do the housing? How are we going to have meals? I was the safety guy, right? And when you get 30 plus people together that you don't know on some tough roads, we ended up breaking people into groups of 4 or 5 that worked for us. And we had a fast, a moderate, and a slow group. So I think it helped us. But I think that was probably the first big trip I went on. Myself, HDR, and Bronco Ride went on a trip where we didn't tell anybody about it. Last year, that was just a riot. It was just a riot, hanging out with those guys, acting like we were 15 and
that's awesome.
And riding some cool roads. So it was a lot of fun.
Because you rode Route 6. Was it this year or last year?
That was last year.
Route 6 road last year. Okay.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
That bridge definitely a lot of fun. Fantastic.
Yeah. Looking forward to this coming year for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We traveled in September, and while it was great that everything was so cheap and desolate, on the other hand, a lot of stuff wasn't open. So it was like a catch-22. Some things were cool, but
yep.
Luckily, they didn't shut down Niagara Falls. They didn't stop the falls for the COVID. So it's all good. But that's awesome. When you motoblog, do you have a go-to ride that you like to do? Because I know a lot of people say like they have like a loop that they like to do, or even when you're not vlogging, do you have like I like to ride River Road in Pennsylvania up through New Hope. That's sort of just been a place that I've always sort of gravitate towards riding. Do you have a certain ride that you like? Is that farm? Is that sort of your ride?
You know what I do? I would tell you probably I have 2 or 3 of those. And that's one of the things I think I want to do a little bit differently. I mean, it's a gorgeous ride, especially in the fall. There's a couple of roads I go down. It's kind of funny in the fall time. A lot of times you'll get stuck because there'll be a photographer and people that just got married that'll actually take over the street and take pictures. It's that beautiful type stuff.
Oh, wow.
So there are a couple of those, but I definitely want to, branch out a little bit, not do as much of that, especially for the channel as I normally do. If you really look close at every one of my videos, you'll probably see that 80% of them are on 3 roads. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to really revisit some stuff and maybe definitely go to some different places. In Michigan, you got to figure out where that's at because it's a pretty flat state. But there's some pretty cool stuff. So I'll be doing a lot of that this coming year.
Awesome. What inspires you to create? Like, do you, because I know for me, even doing it the short amount of time, you start hitting these walls. Do you have like something that keeps you going? Because I know we talked about it earlier. A lot of people talk about burnout and just how, and I think it's especially in this day and age where everybody thinks they're going to be famous. You know, you see it with every channel and every style of YouTube where they go, and then it just kind of peters out or they take off for a bit.
Yeah. You know what? To me, I think it's the reason why you do it. To me, it was originally because, hey, honestly, I thought it was kind of cool, right? Go around on the bike and talk to people. And then when I figured that people liked it and watched it, I'm like, okay, this is really cool, right? And then you go through that early stages going, wow, I'm getting a lot of people that are coming to my channel. This is really cool. And then you got to realize why you're doing it, right? I think a couple things that I fight, or one thing that I really fight is when I go out riding, I am always ready to vlog, right?
Okay.
And I think I need to stop that, right? Because I think at times that takes away from why you ride. So I really, towards the end of the year, started making sure that while I had the gear on for it in case I came across something, I try not to do that. But for me, it's about the people. It's about comments. It's about relationships that you have. I mean, two of my best friends in the world I met on YouTube, right? And we give each other our last dollars, right? That type of thing. So that's the cool part of it to me. I will tell you, you go through some of those phases where it's a little tougher. I don't know about your channel because I know you've been growing like crazy, especially lately. I think the last couple months has been slow for me, or slower from me than usual. Yeah.
It's almost been disturbing. You put something out and you're like, hello, is anybody there? Did they ban me? What just happened?
Yeah. And you know what? I used to view my videos on how many people watched or how many new subscribers I got. Now I view it on how many people are commenting and how many interactions can I have. And I think when my mind changed from why I did this, I think that's where my channel took off.
Okay.
And I know you had a huge video, right? That hopefully brought tons of folks to you.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, it was almost I'm sorry, can finish your thought. I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, I guess it was March a year ago when I was really first starting off. I went to Daytona Bike Week, and and I took my vlogging equipment. I actually went with my next door neighbor. It's a funny story. I did a vlog on, is it going to offend this guy if I'm vlogging and not talking to him while I'm riding? And we ended up not getting comms on, but, and I'm just like, I don't know if he likes it, so I ended up doing it. It's funny because we rode a couple times and I'm just like, I told my wife, I'm like, I can't follow this guy anymore. I mean, he's unsafe, right? And his wife was new to it, never realizing that the guy was going to start watching my channel, number one. So I had to take that video down.
Whoops.
Fortunately,
he didn't.
And they're still good friends. We moved away from Pittsburgh. But one of the things I did is I brought my camera gear and my laptop. So every night after we rode up the coast, or we went downtown at night, or we saw all the other bikes, I stayed up late and did a video and put it out every night. And my channel just blew up from that point.
Wow.
That's really when I look back at things, it was Bike Week 2 years ago that really got going and got some exposure for me just because I put videos out. And there's so many people that can't go to Bike Week so they can see somebody, riding.
That's fair.
They can kind of share. So how about you?
I don't know. I was talking to somebody about this last night and it got to be a bit of a, quite frankly, heated conversation. They're new to YouTube. They have about 150 followers. He's a great guy. It's the conversation wasn't heated because of who he was, but I feel like it's a double-edged sword. Like you said, if you get followers, that's fine, but are they truly followers? You know what I mean? Like having a sub count that's growing is great. But then when you look at the demographics, if you really dive into that rabbit hole, And you start realizing that these people sub because they loved one video and they've probably never watched your channel again.
Yeah.
So to your point, I think it's more of the people like yourself, people that you have an interaction with, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, that you have a camaraderie with, rather than this number that's sort of a really fake thing in a way. I mean, I know content creators that have 3,000-4,000 followers, and they're in the same boat everybody is right now. There's just nothing. People are either burnt out on YouTube, or it's the holidays, or for whatever reason. And I feel bad because they think that number truly doesn't represent the quality of content people bring. Because I've seen people that are crazy high that have terrible content as far as the quality of it. And then I've seen people that are just starting it's like watching a movie. Yeah. So it's hard.
You know what? I agree with you. And it's really hard because, we were both there when you're first getting going, because you don't know what you don't know, right? You just don't. I mean, I watch some folks that I follow that maybe don't have the content that I would. And believe me, there's a million people that have much better content than I do. So definitely not putting myself above anybody else. But, they're so fixated on getting to 1,000, right? The magical 1,000. And at the end of the day, I will tell you, I think my attitude started to change a little bit once I hit 1,000, because I don't want to say it didn't matter. And it's not because of the YouTube bucks. I'm not getting rich. I make enough money to put gas in my bike in the summer, right? But I think it was one of those, it's a goal, but why is it a goal, right? And then after you got through the 1,000, you just kind of take off. I know you're really nearing that point now, and you'll pull that way. You'll be in the thousands. You'll be in 10,000 in a couple of years. But it's again, I think it's the purpose of doing it. I still get people on my channel that said, "Hey, love your channel, new sub, keep them coming," right? And then all of a sudden, you'll see an hour later your sub count go down one, and it's that person, right? And that's just such the wrong reason.
So I'm not the only person that tries to figure that out. You're like, huh?
From a business perspective, I'm an analytic guy. Yep. So I can. You and I are probably a lot of the same. I can read analytics back and forth to you on YouTube. And Colin and I, Bronco Wright, talk about this all the time. Is how to get into the algorithm, right? And I think that we're getting better at what that looks like. But at the end of the day, if that takes over the fun of riding and takes over vlogging, then I would stop doing that. But honestly, I have fun doing it. And if people still want to watch my crazy butt talking to myself on a bike, hey, that's great, right?
That's awesome. So the one that we had touched on this, and I think it's a very simple question. I'm a huge fan of the documentary Why We Ride. So that's my question. And I like to ask this people at its very core, at the elevator pitch level, why do you ride? I mean, what is it about riding that is that you've become that person?
To me, it's just you and the bike and where you're at the time and the experience that you're going through. It puts everything else aside. I always tell people, I've never went home back from a ride and my wife goes, "How was the ride?" And I go, "It was bad or crappy." Never. It's never, ever happened, right? I could go through the rain and I'd be like, "Hey, it was great. I was out on the bike." It's and this, it's just that feel that you get when you're riding that you notice things differently. And I love it. And you know what? I always joke about when I get old enough and can't hold up my 950-pound bike, I'll get a 3-wheeler. I don't care. As long as I can continue doing that, right? I'm all for it. So
I think it's really funny that, once you get that bug, there's just it's like, what, I told my wife this with all that was going on. It's like, if it comes down to eating ramen noodles or the bike, we're keeping a bike. And I'll take the ramen noodles every day of the week and I'll be happy.
My wife was joking with me she said, "So if there was a decision between the motorcycle and me, what would you say?"
She can't ask that question. That's
I said,
cool.
I said, I would tell you it's been a good run, honey.
Well, that brings me into the question I was going to ask. So now it becomes even worse because which bike do you keep? Because you're living the two bike dream. You've got the Road King. It's classic, correct?
It is. It's
So the Ultra.
Yeah. So I think I told you I used to ride a quad in the mountains for years. And as you get a little bit older, that's fun because you're with a dozen buddies for 10 years in a row, one week. But at some point it starts getting a little hard on the body. Right. And, I always wanted a used bike. I'm not a mechanic. I can still work on a bike, but I would tell you that, I can do maintenance and service and all that stuff. But if I have something serious, it's got to go to the dealer. Right. Or it's got to go to somebody, not necessarily the dealer. That's probably a bad word, but, I decided that I wanted a Road King for the longest time and wanted a used bike, wanted something classic. And so I started looking at used Road Kings. And I found a guy that had one on a bike I liked. And I was talking to him about it. And I said, hey, I'll come over and look at it. I think he wanted like $5,000 for it, 4,500, something like that. So my Road King's a 2000, Road King class is a 2000. And I said, hey, would you ever, and I've never done this in my life, because I have this quad that's sitting in a corner of my garage with a cover on it that I basically take out for 5 or 6 days a year. Right. Okay. I bought a trailer for it. I pull it. Right. And we go to the Hatfield and McCoy trails, which what escaped me earlier. And I said, hey, would you consider trading a quad for part of the bike? And the guy's like, actually, I'm looking for one for my son. I said, really? So I loaded my quad up in the trailer. I took it over to him. The weather was bad. It was almost wintertime. And I looked at it. He looked at the quad, rode it around. Guy says, tell you what, give me $1,000 in cash. We'll switch titles. And wow. I couldn't get my checkbook out fast enough. And I ended up trading my 2000 Road King for an old quad that I had and $1,000.
Wow.
So
that's a beautiful bike.
Yeah. And it really is. And it had a stage 1 done to it. I haven't really done anything with it. I love it. It rumbles. It's an old bike. It's, I never take my phone out with that bike. I always joke that I probably look stupid because I have a full face helmet that's like tan with a black bike that I should have some cooler helmet with. Right. I love that bike. And people ask me all the time, which one do you like better? It's like two kids, man. I love them both. I really do. When I get on the Ultra and I've done so much stuff to it, it's such a great bike. It's such a touring bike. I'm like, I love this bike more. But then when I go for a quick 50, 60, 70 miles on the Road King, I'm like, I'll never get rid of this bike. Right. So I'm fortunate, but, I'm fortunate to run into a guy that was looking for a trade on something I don't use anymore. So, awesome. I'm fortunate to have two bikes. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And I think it's great too, because you have, especially if you work on it, you can have one down and one still running, which is awesome. I had a commuter bike for a while, and that was the best part about it. You had the best of both worlds. I had something that one up was fantastic, but my wife rode on it once it was done. She's like, nope, never going again. I was like, okay.
I do got to tell you what, buying a Road King wasn't bad for my channel, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of, and we talk about analytics all the time. I will say my analytics changed when I started doing some videos on the Road King. I got, believe it or not, a younger crowd that started to watch my channel from when I just rode on the limited, right? So, but yeah, it's fun. I like them both.
The limited's definitely a different YouTube market because it's a shame because it got the perception that it's like the retiree bike.
Yeah.
But it's like the most comfortable thing in the world. Somebody was giving me crap the one day about having the lazy boy back for it, meaning the tour pack. And I was like, well, you take your Sportster out and let's go ride. And the first time you get gas, I'm not even through my tank. I'm not even halfway.
That's right.
And then when I get to the end of my tank, you let me know how you feel.
Exactly. You'll be here one day. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, right? Exactly. It gets back to style or form over function. It's
no doubt.
It's a much more comfortable bike. So you live in Michigan. One of the things that I always like when I travel is there, as a local, what would you recommend to people? Are there things that you would recommend to people to check out that are off the beaten path? Maybe it's that restaurant, maybe it's that place you guys go for ice cream.
Yeah. I people have probably heard this, and I've done videos on it. I live about 10 minutes from hell. I actually live 10 minutes from Hell, Michigan. And I don't know if you've heard about Hell, Michigan, but almost every motorcycle guy and gal that rides in this part of the country has heard of Hell, Michigan, right? So I've gotten to the point where I started doing videos as I rode by that, because that's one of my favorite 3 roads going by, where I would do something on, the whole Hell, Michigan, and it's really an ice cream place and 2 bars. I mean, it's really what it is.
That's funny.
So now I just ride by it, don't say anything, and I'll just go, oh, hell, or something like that, right? So, and it's amazing how many people come out and go, is that Hell, Michigan? Is that Hell, Michigan, right? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's less than a football field, just so you know. From the one bar to the other one is not more than a football field, right?
Wow.
So that's a cool place. I will tell you, I grew up in Michigan, and after school, I moved out on the East Coast, mostly for business. And now I'm kind of back home. It's interesting. As a kid, you grow up and go, let me get out of here. And then as an older adult, you come back and you come back. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is probably the nicest country that you'll see. And I didn't spend a lot of time up there, but I've been following and watching people. And that's what the wife and I are going to spend a lot of time doing, is ride and call it the UP of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Michigan. That's really the gorgeous place. I'm hoping to expose that part of a pretty cool state that's freezing all the time to people and explore it myself. So we look forward to that.
That's awesome. That's now, if you were out in Pittsburgh, have you ever rode Route 666 in speaking of hell in PA?
I have not. I only lived in Pittsburgh for 2 years.
Okay.
Just over 2 years. Yeah. But there's some great roads out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's funny. We live, you could stand on my roof and see the Delaware River. That's how close we are to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
But it's amazing that Jersey is so flat. You can ride through the Pine Barrens and you pretty much could just go to sleep and the bike will drive itself. It's so flat. And then you can go over to PA and you can be in the mountains in an hour and a half, where it's like some of the best riding you could ever do.
Exactly.
So we talked about HDR and we've talked about Bronco ride. So that brings us to the really the last question. You started with Fireside Chat with the Boys, which I was lucky enough to be on, and thank you again.
You were awesome.
You have this great dynamic with those guys. And then I will tell everybody that you need to watch that, even if you don't catch it live. Even the live, the people that show up in that is just great. Whose idea was that? Or is that just something you were like, hey, we sit around, we're having a few beers, why not videotape it? And I don't mean that in a negative sense. It just feels natural. It feels,
it's that's a good question. It may have come up with maybe HDR. I may need to give him the credit for, hey, let's do this and see how it goes. It's kind of funny. We I wouldn't say a disagreement, but I wanted it called Sunday Night with the Boys or something like that. And HDR insisted on the Fireside Chat with the Boys. So it's called Sunday Night Fireside Chat with the Boys. And we did that, and we started talking to folks and coming on, and it went from having 10 people on maybe the first couple of times to we'll have 70, 80, 90, 100 people on though pretty consistently, and it amazes us because we're just 3 dudes getting on acting like little kids, but we talk about motorcycles, we talk about positive things, right? We ask each other stupid questions so people get to know us more. And those people that come in there, they're our friends, right? So we get to put people on like you, and you gave much more back than we gave you. I mean, you were just awesome, and we hope that it helps other people's channels. Because when we first started that, I will tell you, it helped our channel. But now all the people that are in there are people that always come. And you probably know we're on a little hiatus right now. Mm-hmm. We've done it for 6 months every Sunday night at 6:00 Eastern. And we stopped because, Bronco Ride has the business he is involved in ties him up during the holiday months. And we'll get going back in the middle or late July. So we'll be consistent in these again and have guests from, all over the world on. But, we've found that it really bothered us to not have, we went like 2 weeks without it. I don't know. We did a little Christmas special that we decided on 2 mornings before it, because we are good friends. We text each other in a group chat all the time. If I don't hear from them in 2 days, it's like, dude, you okay? Right. So, it's a lot of fun for us.
I just think the chemistry is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's because we're all weirdos. That's probably what it is. But you know what? We love bikes. We always talk to guests that come on. We do the same with you. We're not going to talk politics because we don't care. We're not going to talk about the beer virus, right? Everybody hears enough about that. We're going to get you away for an hour. We're just going to laugh together, talk to people, have fun, and it's funny. We always do a debrief, and after, I don't know, it was last Sunday or the Sunday before, we just got together after and was like, man, we miss this a whole lot. We have our wives on one time. That's probably usually the best show because they embarrass us and people seem to like that. So,
well, and I think that it's genuine, right? Because it's not the thing that I've noticed with YouTube, especially, maybe not late, maybe it's more paying attention to it, but people sort of become these characters that they're amusing, but they're not necessarily relatable. It's not like it's your personality turned up a notch or two, which is, kind of say, if you ever met me in person, I'm probably the same way, just with a cup of coffee. I'm not like trying to be over the top. And I think that that's what speaks to it. It really feels like you're sitting down just talking to your buddies, I really appreciate that. I think in the last couple of months, a couple of people have made that comment. And that's honestly the biggest compliment somebody can give you, right? At the end of the day, you want to be yourself, not fake. I mean, HDR taught me on that first ride when I had 9 subs, right? Which is keep it PG rated and be yourself. And I think that there's 2 wins there. You're more marketable because everybody can watch you. Yeah. And you don't ever have to phone it in. Right. If I had to be something else, I don't know I could, number one. And number 2, I couldn't sustain it.
Yeah. Plus, people see that quick. Mm-hmm. People see it. It's funny. I was watching a video before you and I came on, right? And it's somebody's channel. It's a female that I like. And she's gotten big quickly. Mm-hmm. And, the video that I watched today just didn't make me feel good. It was one of those, hey, it was kind of a cool video, but it felt like it was more for the growth of the channel, and it wasn't really her. And, a little bit, it's like, I want to keep watching a couple of videos, but that bothered me. And people can tell that. You can sniff that crap out quick, right, with people.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was saying earlier, like with the reviews, it's good for channel traction. But at the same time, if you just become the ShamWow guy, you've kind of taken away from being yourself, right? Because I find myself trying to be more on my P's and Q's of what I'm about to say when I'm reviewing something, because I want it to sound intelligent rather than if I'm just vlogging and I'm making no sense at all, but I'm having fun.
Yeah. You know what? I think there's one other thing, honestly, that gets to me. We talked earlier that you and I are both the same way with positive people, right? I never get preachy. And there's a couple folks that I like a lot, and their channel is preaching to us about how we should feel and what we should do and what our goals should be. And that just turns me off so much, because at the end of the day, we're all grown adults, and I know we get a little more set in our ways the older we get. And at the end of the day, you just got to be yourself and have fun. And as long as it keeps continuing to be fun, I know you and I will keep doing it, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's a shame, because I think that there's been so much negativity in YouTube lately, where it's almost like that draws people in for whatever reason. Yeah. And I feel like it takes away from the content that, as you said, is PG, it's positive, is not getting the viewership that it should because of that. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we're just people. This isn't my full-time job. If this ever became my full-time job, well, it isn't going to be my full-time job, number one, but if it was, it's still, there seems to be this thing where it's like, I'm going to start a channel and now I need to get to 10,000K next week. It's like,
And here's the other thing. I always joke about this with a couple of people. It's like, as I like hunting, right? And I go to a hunting camp with a buddy, and we've always talked about building a structure or something. We always joke about how cool it would be to live out there, right? And then I'm like, but if we did that, that would take away from hunting camp. It would take away from the experience. And if I was able to quit my job and do this full time, I think it would take away for the reason why I do it, if that makes any sense.
It does. I mean, I started doing video production, and it was really fun in the beginning. And then once it becomes a job, it's like anything, you enjoy it, but the things that I enjoy aren't work related things. You know what I mean? It becomes a grind. You're looking at the pile of things you need to edit, and you're like, remember when this was fun?
Exactly. So I need some advice from you.
Sure.
How can I make a video for the next couple months when it's snowing out at my house? Got any good advice?
I don't know. I mean, I think the reviews are fun. I mean, you kind of go through your pile of stuff or reach out to vendors.
And I know there's not an answer.
But I'm wondering, but there is. I'm wondering if maybe that you can move the rotation of the fireside chat to the winter. So that way you can be in the summer and just be hooligans. You don't have to worry about being home on Sundays.
Yeah. You know what? I will tell you that
or you let your wife start a Sunday show off cycle of yours, but on your channel.
That'll just get me in trouble. That's a ridiculous idea. What do you think? No way.
Then she's out there buying a bike, and
dude, you're not talking to my wife ever. Just so you know that. You know what? I will tell you, it is tough sometimes in the summer when you're out riding or you're spending the day with your family or whatever to get back for the show. And this, I'm sure, in kind of putting this together. We rotate ours, right? Mm-hmm. So the host is, every third week is yours, and we do it on that person's channel. There is no doubt that week you're on, you're trying to get a guest, you're trying to hook up, make sure they got video and audio, you're preparing questions, and we try to share it with the people that want it, right? We don't want to surprise anybody or put them on the spot like you that didn't give me any questions, but that's okay. I'm kidding. But it would, there's a part of it, but you know what? It's amazing when we stop doing it, how many people reach out and say, hey, we get it. We love you guys. Can't wait till you get back. Kind of makes you want to keep doing it. And then every time we do it, and we all have times where we're not on 100%, right? Mm-hmm. There's been a couple of shows where like 10 to 6, I'm just like, oh yeah. All right. Come on, Bob, get it together. Right. And 15 minutes in, I'm like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Right. It's just it's just fun. Right. So
it's interesting when you hear from people that are just random people, they're not necessarily a follower, and they leave some comment and you're like, oh, somebody actually does watch this. Because it's very easy to forget that, because everyone sort of becomes a statistic, right? It's great. You got a bunch of thumbs up, and it's great that all your buddies comment on it, but it's really cool when it's just some random person, that just goes, oh, that was really cool.
Yeah, and I just find often, and we talked about this, there's an event this summer you may know about, that there's going to be probably 50 or 60 people, and it's going to be motovloggers, right? And I think it'll be cool. It's funny, when we did this West Virginia motovlogger meetup, we made a couple stops, and everybody's walking around with a camera. It was funny. I was just doing a video of everybody else. And there were 4 or 5 people there that followed the channel, and I found that I liked spending a little more time with them better. Mm-hmm. So I've actually thought of this year, maybe doing something in Ohio for just people that follow our channels, and not doing a motovlogger. Awesome. I don't know. I don't want to use the word as giving back, because I don't feel it's that. It's more of meeting new people, and saying thank you, right, at the end of the day. So
I think that's actually a really cool idea. Give back in the sense of, organizing something, but at the same time, maybe don't document it, right? Because it still happened.
Yeah. And we went from having 3 or 4 of us riding to having 35 of us riding. So you're careful. And I don't know if you've had this yet, but I did a video that actually was out Sunday that just talked about going on vacation with 2 other couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be 6.
I saw that.
Well, anybody that follows my channel knows who the 2 other couples are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part about it is you get people going, "Hey, where are you going?" Or, "Hey, can we meet you?" Or, and you want to be nice, but we've decided, the 6 of us, that we are going to protect this one. We're not necessarily, not that we're big enough people stalk us, right? But you don't want to tell people, "Hey, we're going to be 20 miles from you, but we can't stop by," because we're going to probably limit our vlogging and focus on the girls, right? And just having a fun time together. But it makes it hard sometimes. So doing something to where I could go down with my wife and meet a bunch of people, whether it's 5 people, 10 people, or whatever, it's kind of in the works. So
that's awesome. But I think it's to what you said. Now, I know I'm going to open up a rabbit hole when I say this, but we wear half helmets and full helmets. I wear my full helmet, obviously, when I'm vlogging, and I occasionally wear my half helmet depending on temperature.
Yeah.
That's always how I judge where the ride's going. I said to my wife, "We wearing half helmets or full helmets?" And she says half helmets. It's like, all right, this is our ride. This is the ride where we're out just riding and you're not worried about, I was in Niagara Falls and people were IMing me on Instagram. Like, "Do you know shade trees there?" I'm like, "No, because I'm on vacation."
Dude, that was a great video, by the way.
I was like, "Oh, thank you." That had to be the absolute most fun to make and probably one of the lowest viewed videos I put up.
I remember you and we were talking at that point, because I remember you talking about it coming out. And I remember you talking about how much fun you had doing it. And I will tell you what, that is the thing that is astonishing about, if you get into doing this, is you need to know that you're going to have a great video. I put a video out 2 weeks ago that is the worst video for views that I've had since I started. And, we do all the things about having the right thumbnail and the right title and especially Bronco Ride. We shoot stuff off of each other all the time, right? And it didn't do very well. And I'm finally at the point in my YouTube life, I guess, that I'm like, it doesn't matter. I had like 60 people that I know commenting on it, right? And put out another video this Sunday that's doing better, much better, right? So it's sometimes those things that are fun to us, like the one you had, that don't do well. And then I've put a video out that I thought would do crappy, and it has 15,000 views since I put it out. So it's one of those things that you don't know, and you be yourself and talk about something hopefully that's interesting, or show something that's interesting, and it does how it does, right?
It's always the one that you're fixated on, where you're like, "Oh, the colors are off, the camera's sideways," and then people are like, "Oh, this is the best video I've ever seen." Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the quality is great, and you're like, yeah.
That's awesome. So as we wrap it up, this is your time. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about coming up? I'll put all your social media links, obviously, in the description, but can you just remind everyone where they can follow you and all that?
Yeah, I do. And first, before I say that, one of the reasons that I had you on the channel and that I personally gravitate towards you and like you, because, you're always trying to think about other people by saying, "Hey, what's your channel?" And my channel is BoDean52, right? It's the same on Facebook and on Instagram. But at the end of the day, I appreciate people like you that are outside of this today doing the right thing. And I know that's a whole nother video and topic, but some of the stuff that you're doing for men's health it is astonishing to me. I'm sure it's uncomfortable at times. I think it's something that hopefully society is getting better, and we as men can talk about. I have a nephew that was in Afghanistan, and I'm kind of been close to him, and he's starting to have some of those dreams, right? So I'm spending some extra time with him. And at the end of every one of my videos, I always say, "Hey, call a friend," right?
Yep. That's all we need.
5 minutes, go 5-10 minutes, go into the grocery store and looking in your phone and go, "You know what? I haven't heard from Brian in a while. I'm going to go check on him." Right. I think it's a lot more important than somebody watching my channel or watching your channel. And I just wanted to say, I appreciate what you do for men. Keep throwing that message out there, man. Even when it feels like you're up against a brick wall, you're making a difference. I appreciate it.
And I think that, well, first off, I'm beyond flattered that you said that, but I kind of felt and I still feel, and I try to tell people that no matter what you've gone through, if it's been traumatic, there's somebody that can learn from that experience.
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned this on a video, but I'll say it. I was going to see a therapist. I went for like my second session. My wife was with me. We came out and I'm like, this dude's a quack. I'm like, she's like, where are we going? I'm like, we're getting on the bike and we're going to go ride. We're going to ride until I'm done. Yep. We came home and I was like, you know what? This really is the therapy I need, right? Is to spend that time for myself. And I think that we all need to give back. My father was huge in that, right? It's, everybody has something to give, and that's what I love about your channel is it's positive. You're not preaching to people. You're taking me out of the world for a few minutes. You know what I mean? And that's such a good thing to have. Yeah, no,
I appreciate that. And I also try to look at things as, even with the year we've had, this is a time period of your life. Mm-hmm. It's going to pass. It's going to make an impact on you. Right. But at the end of the day, it's a time period. It's not your whole life. And I think it's up to us guys and gals, right? Make sure we're taking care of each other at the end of the day. And if anything has taught me over this last year is, keep your family and your tight friends close and invest in them. Right. Yep. Which I think is why Jack and Colin, HDR and Bronco Ride and I are such close friends. We invest in our friendship. And it's easy.
And that's work.
It's
a lot of work.
Yeah. It's easy to have a million friends. And actually the video I said that didn't do real good was, have a small circle of friends, but at the end of the day, you want to be cordial and and spend time with everybody, but you can only invest in your family and a couple friends, right? Yeah. Truly invest in them. And the message that you're sending out, I think is good. And I know it's an uphill fight and, but hey, if it makes it different, if one person calls a buddy from my video or one person calls somebody from yours, then you and I, if we talk about our whole life and that happens, it was worth it. Right.
At the end of the day, right. It's much like you said with YouTube, you can go for the big win or you can go for the small win. That's realistic. Right. If I can make a difference in somebody's life, then that's what it's about. Right. It's exactly the subs and everything that comes with that. Like you said, so I can fill my bike up. That's great. But
yep, exactly.
The fact that you talk somebody potentially down is a lot more important.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah. So anything else you want to plug? You want to talk about?
Nope. We will again.
Having any odd dreams? No.
I have those all the time. That's why I need to ride the bike. I will tell you late January, the Sunday night fireside chat, that'll be back probably the last Sunday in January. And then we'll be consistent with that. I like that again, for all the reasons that we've talked about, but it's like 100 of your friends getting together to chat for an hour a week. That's probably the coolest part. You're going to put all my social media stuff down in there, but at the end of the day, I always tell people to check out people's channel and content. And if you like it, stick around. If you don't, you move on. Right. But hopefully it hits with people. And I'm just lucky to meet a lot of friends like you doing what we do.
You had said something, and not to go back to it, but I think it's important. I appreciate so much that what you do in the community and Bronco Ride and HDR do, that you bring others up. So many people are so like, it's the wizard, you can't see what's behind it, or you're not worried about what someone can do for you as much as you could potentially expose other people to that person. And I think that's beyond grateful. I'm beyond grateful, and I think it's beyond gracious that you do that, because there's so many people that are so afraid of their branding, and that they don't ever want to let somebody get get a hand up, if you will.
Yeah. You know what? At the end of the day, we live in a house. We're not on the street. We're not, hey, everything's not perfect, but there's a lot of people worse off. And it's like there's an age when it's cool when you're a kid that you get Christmas presents, and then it's cooler when you give a Christmas present, right? Yeah, it's the same thing, and I think it becomes natural after you make that change inside yourself to try to make a difference, whether it's paying for the coffee behind you when you're in line, or doing what you can, and it could just be calling a friend, right? So
it's amazing what a random act of kindness can do. That's for sure. Yeah. That should be the message. That's it. That's it.
I like
it's a
that.
wrap.
That's another vlog. I'm going to go make that right now.
There you go. I always, and I'm going to ramble for a second, but I was watching a TED talk and I wish I'll link it in the description. It's a mental health department of a police department. And one of the things that this guy said is that when you ask somebody how they're doing, mean it. Like, actually wait for the response. And it may not be a positive response, but it's about doing that.
You know what? I just real quick. You and I could talk forever. I used to, until I moved here, I was in the heating and cooling business, right?
Okay.
And I remember walking in the warehouse one day, and one of our guys was working in the warehouse, and he didn't have safety gloves on, right? And the company I worked for at the time, if you didn't have safety gloves on, you were getting 2 days off, right? Safety is the most important thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I kind of remember walking in the office, and I said, "Good morning, George." I remember George this day; he's still there. I said, "Hey, good morning, George. Hey, put your gloves on, brother." Right? And I kind of walked in, and he was. I'm sure he was worried that I was going to suspend him for a couple of days, and he kind of stuck his head in, man. And I said, "Hey, man, I give a shit about you. I don't want you to get hurt." Yeah. Right? And at the end of the day, it's. If we, regardless of what we do for a living, what religion we are, what race we are, if ultimately at the end of the day, we try to take care of each other, even if it's one person at a time, right? Even if it's telling one person to put gloves on because I don't want you to get hurt, then we've probably done better than some others. So
yeah, and as cliche as it sounds, you left the world a better place that day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hey, we should run for president and vice president now. What do you think?
Okay. I want to be vice president because that's only like supermarket openings and the fun stuff. I don't want to do the serious stuff.
Yeah, pass, man. I don't have that in me. Plus, they'll look into my background. They'll never bring me on.
Plus, they don't let you drive anymore. You can't. I mean, you think they're going to let me have my bike? That's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Even my bike up for power? What a narcissist does that?
Yeah, can you see that? Hey, I'm the first president that rides his bike to work every day. No, if I can't ride, then that's it. I'm out.
Yeah, I don't care what I can afford or what power I have. That's just going to corrupt me.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much. And like I said, you, in my opinion, have set the milestone for what people should be and giving back and having that realistic, honest approach. So
thanks, brother. Right back at you.
And I'm going to make sure that we link all your stuff, link you up with the guys. I can't say enough that if you are watching this video, you have to check out BoDean's channel, subscribe, catch the fireside chat, and you have to watch the wife episode. I don't care what you do. Stop what you're doing when you see this. My wife laughed herself hysterical. That's all. She still talks about that. She's like, are they going to bring them back on?
Oh, that was the first one we did with the fireside chat with the girls?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you, and you can tell your wife this. So we have decided our first one back in January are going to be with the girls.
That's awesome.
So
you earned a fan the moment that came on. She was like, I'm sold. This is the best YouTube I've ever seen. It just speaks to being genuine. Well, I appreciate it. I've talked your ear off. I genuinely appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Thanks, brother. Be safe. Check on a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. There are words to live by. Thank you.
All right.